Today, we're really getting into a hidden history, connecting some seemingly random dots like a wild embassy attack in Pakistan in '79 and a Saudi prince at an American boarding school, all leading towards 9/11.
That's right.
Our guide is Steve Coll's amazing Pulitzer winner, Ghost Wars, The Secret History of the CIA, Afghanistan, and bin Laden from the Soviet invasion to September 10, 2001.
Yeah, it's a crucial read.
And we're not just listing facts here. We want to unpack the why, the tangled web of U.S. covert ops, the rise of radical Islam, and the people who, often unintentionally, set the stage.
Exactly. And Coll's book gives us this incredible view using classified documents, tons of interviews. It really lights up this long, complicated path.
You get to see how strategies changed and, crucially, those unintended consequences.
Yeah, the ripples, decisions made in secret years ago, their impact is just profound.
Okay, let's dive right in, because the starting point Coll lays out is pretty dramatic. That Islamabad embassy attack, November 1979.
Yeah, it was chaos.
Absolute chaos. Coll describes wave upon wave of armed rioters hitting the U.S. Embassy. A young Marine, Corporal Stephen Crowley, was shot. CIA guys scrambling to save people.
And it wasn't just the embassy, right?
No, simultaneous attacks. The American school, information centers, just everywhere. 2 Pakistani staff killed, an American airman too. A terrible cost.
And what Coll uncovers is key. This wasn't just some spontaneous outburst of anger. There was substantial coordinated planning. CIA officers actually saw organizers with weapons, some identified as Arabs.
And the scale. Thousands showing up in government buses, students yelling about the Grand Mosque before that news was even really out.
It points to premeditation, definitely. And then finding that who's who in the CIA book on a rioter.
Chilling.
Yeah, it just showed this wasn't random. It signaled a threat, an organized one from these radical groups that was maybe more sophisticated than the U.S. realized at the time.
And this wasn't happening in a vacuum, right? There was this whole other movement gaining steam in Pakistan.
Right, the rise of this sort of Islamic counterforce. Groups like Jamaat-e-Islami taking over student unions, pushing out secular voices.
And their founder, Maududi, pushing this revolutionary idea of jihad in Islam.
And fueled by, well, what they call Petrodollar Islam.
The Saudi money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Massive amounts of cash flowing out after the '73 oil boycott, funding Wahhabism, this really puritanical version of Islam all over the globe.
Through charities like the Muslim World League.
Yeah, printing Qurans, building mosques, linking up with conservative groups everywhere. It built this huge parallel network.
Okay, so you've got that happening. Then, bam, the Soviets invade Afghanistan.
Which wasn't entirely out of the blue. I mean, the KGB had been funding communist networks there for ages.
Right, since the early 60s, training military folks. Then they back the coup in '78 that kills President Dawood.
Who was trying to play both sides, Moscow and Washington.
And suddenly you have Afghan leftists waving red flags in this deeply religious rural country.
Even the Soviets knew it was a stretch. The KGB head basically told the Politburo, look, Afghanistan is not ready for socialism. Backward economy, Islam's dominance, illiteracy.
But they couldn't lose.
Exactly. Under no circumstances can we lose Afghanistan. And their guy, Taraki, was ruthless. Built a personality cult, talked about the dictatorship of the proletariat, even cited Lenin's mercilessness.
So how did the U.S. react initially?
Pretty cautiously, actually. Brzezinski, Carter's national security advisor, just recommended non-lethal aid, enough to embarrass the Soviets, basically.
So Carter signs this presidential finding in July '79.
Right, allowing CIA special activities, but the key phrase was, no weapons would be supplied for now.
Seems like a miscalculation in hindsight.
A big one. They underestimated the Soviet resolve and what this conflict would become. It's also when the CIA itself was changing a bit.
How so?
Fewer Ivy Leaguers, more working-class Midwesterners like Gary Schroen, guys learning languages in CIA classrooms, not studying abroad, a more practical, maybe blue-collar shift.
Interesting. And Schroen pops up later, doesn't he?
He does. He's a key figure throughout Coll's narrative.
So despite the initial U.S. caution, the Afghans themselves weren't holding back.
Not at all. The reaction to Soviet troops was immediate, emotional. In Kabul, Coll describes tens of thousands on rooftops chanting Allahu Akbar.
Powerful image of defiance.
And by late '81, you had intellectuals, civil servants, even athletes defecting to the Mujahideen. They were roaming freely, hitting the Soviets hard. It was clear this was a deep-rooted resistance.
This is where things get really complicated, with all these different players converging.
Yeah, a potent but really unpredictable mix. You've got Pakistan's leader, General Zia-ul-Haq.
A deeply religious man.
Absolutely. Believed political Islam was Pakistan's identity. Like Israel's. Publicly pious, privately courteous, but ruthless, he overthrew and hanged Bhutto.
And he found a willing partner in Saudi Arabia.
Definitely. Prince Turki al-Faisal at the Saudi GID saw communism as heresy, a threat to their oil.
And Turkey. He went to prep school in the U.S., Lawrenceville.
Yeah, it's this fascinating contrast Coll highlights. Football, maybe girls and beer, a world away from Saudi's austere Islamic ritual. But he and Pakistan's intelligence chief, Akhtar, shared this belief in an Islamic brotherhood.
So Prince Fahd opens the Saudi checkbook for Pakistan's ISI.
Opens the bountiful treasury, as Coll puts it, and the proxy war funding explodes.
And then comes CIA Director William Casey.
Ah, Casey. By early '84, he's an ardent champion of the Afghan program, traveling secretly, doubling the spending from both the CIA and the Saudis.
He seemed personally invested.
Very. He even pushed these provocative operations, like sending rebels with CIA-printed Korans into Soviet Central Asia, stuff that was legally dubious.
And his own Catholicism seemed to connect him with the Islamic leaders. The private mass in Riyadh, arranged by Turkey, is quite something.
It is, where Christian worship was banned, but internally at the CIA, there was pushback.
Right. Deputies like Inman and McMahon were worried.
Yeah, worried it was spinning out of control. They wanted secrecy, basic weapons. One senior guy described it as the sensible bureaucrats versus the rabid right in the agency.
That tension seems like a recurring theme.
It is, and reflects this underlying anxiety about consequences. General Zia apparently said to Casey, being a U.S. ally is like living on the banks of an enormous river. Every 4 or 8 years, the river changes course, and you may find yourself alone in a desert.
Oh, captured that Pakistani skepticism perfectly. So how did the ISI, Pakistan's intelligence agency, actually run the war?
Well, their operations chief, Mohammad Yusuf, claimed they walked a careful line between guerrilla war and terrorism, targeting Soviet soldiers, not civilians, supposedly. No poison wells, things like that, but yeah. Once the CIA sent those remotely fired rockets from Egypt and China, they caused random civilian casualties in Kabul. The line got very blurry.
And Coll brings in Bruce Hoffman's point about tactics overlapping.
Exactly. Guerrilla war, terrorism, often the same methods. And crucially, that training infrastructure, the camps, the manuals, the bomb tech built with U.S. money under NSDD 166.
Later gets called terrorist infrastructure.
Precisely. The unintended consequences laid bare.
And the game really changed in '86 with the Stingers, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Huge escalation. Ghaffar, this military engineer, gets the first kill near Jalalabad, takes out a Soviet Hind helicopter gunship in a fireball.
Must have been a massive morale boost for the Mujahideen.
Huge. Suddenly they could fight back against Soviet air power effectively. And the U.S. thought they had intel, Vayol, suggesting Gorbachev was giving his generals a short deadline to win.
Which turned out to be wrong.
Misleading, yeah. Gorbachev was already looking for the exit.
Yeah.
And Casey, the true believer, he resigns sick and dies soon after.
Okay, this is where, as you said, it gets really interesting. The Soviets leave. What does the U.S. do?
Essentially, nothing. A policy void. Coll says U.S. policy just became the de facto promotion of Pakistani goals.
President Bush even told Gorbachev, we are not in favor of installing an exclusively pro-American regime.
Right. This is not U.S. policy. The CIA kept warning post-war Afghanistan would be an awful mess, but Washington basically let Pakistan manage it.
And that just strengthened Pakistan's ISI.
Massively. Hamid Gul takes over. Americans thought he was a moderate Islamist, but he was super close to Saudi intelligence. ISI becomes this army within the army, maybe Pakistan's most powerful institution, thanks to all that CIA and Saudi cash.
Which leads to more problems inside Afghanistan. These factions.
Big time. You had Masood, educated background, good spy network, survived multiple assassination attempts, versus Hekmatyar,
who Coll describes as just focused on power, destroying all his enemies, even other Mujahideen.
Yeah. And U.S. diplomat McWilliams sends this furious cable, the stink bomb, about Afghan anger at Pakistan and the U.S. for backing Hekmatyar.
But the CIA didn't like Masood either.
Bearden, a key CIA figure, saw him as unreliable. It led to this policy shift, the Thompson policy, trying to bypass ISI and give aid directly to commanders like Masood and Abdul Haq, trying to get around the Peshawar theologians.
But it didn't really work. The 89-90 Kabul offensive failed.
Right. The CIA ended up funding both Hekmatyar and Masood. Just shows the mess they were in.
Let's go back to Prince Turki for a second. This double game Coll describes.
It's fascinating. He seemed to want a more open, modern, Saudi Arabia-admired Western systems.
But he's funding radicals who violently oppose those same systems.
Exactly. Coll suggests it was partly Saudi competition with Shiite Iran needing Sunni allies like Pakistan and Afghanistan, but also maybe appeasing domestic Islamists, let them cause trouble abroad instead of at home, exporting the problem.
And into this mess steps Osama bin Laden.
He gets really agitated about Iraq invading Kuwait, and especially about U.S. troops coming to Saudi Arabia, demands to see princes, wants to lead a new jihad himself.
And preachers allied with him start denouncing the U.S. presence. It is the West against Islam.
Right. The Saudis kind of gently repressed them, made some arrests, but their strategy was often to just emphasize Islamic causes outside Saudi Arabia, keep the focus elsewhere.
Meanwhile, Afghanistan is just collapsing.
By 92, Coll says it's a major global heroin source like Colombia or Burma. Poppy fields, labs run by Pakistani crime networks.
Now, President Najibullah's warning, hauntingly accurate.
Absolutely. If fundamentalism comes, war will continue. Afghanistan will turn into a center of world smuggling, a center for terrorism. He tried to step down peacefully. It failed. Massoud takes Kabul, and the Second Afghan War begins.
So the Cold War's over, but this new threat is brewing, and the U.S. intel community is scrambling.
Yeah, scrambling is a good word. Under Clinton, the CIA is trying to figure out its place. James Woolsey, the first director, was seen as paranoid, didn't connect well.
And later, George Tenet focused more on internal health, morale, the basics. Worked himself into a heart attack, apparently.
He did. Shows the pressure.
Then, 1993, the first World Trade Center bombing.
A huge shock. Ramzi Youssef, this young Pakistani engineer's son, his confession is chilling.
I masterminded the explosion. He wanted to stop the killing of Arabs by Israel, thought only extreme acts worked, citing the Marine barracks bombing, even Hiroshima.
And his letter warned the WTC would remain a target. The CIA initially assumed a state sponsor. It took analyst Paul Pillar to coin ad hoc terrorists for this new kind of unaffiliated mobile religious violence.
And McWilliams' earlier cable about Afghanistan being a spawning ground looks prophetic now.
Totally. But the Clinton admin had this no-policy approach for its first term. Afghanistan was basically left to the State Department and a relatively junior official, Robin Raffel. The situation just festered.
Then the Taliban emerged. Then bin Laden gets more directly involved.
His guys try to kill Cofer Black, a CIA officer, in Khartoum. That's a direct attack. Then bin Laden moves back to Afghanistan in 96.
Sudan wanted him out. Saudis didn't want him back.
And incredibly, the CIA station in Islamabad didn't even track his arrival. No active sources, they said. He immediately declares Americans the main enemy.
And Pakistan's leader, Benazir Bhutto, just gives the ISI what they want. Unlimited aid to the Taliban.
She capitulated, yeah. ISI wanted that loyal Pashtun government in Kabul Zia's old dream. And the U.S. State Department barely protested when the Taliban took over, just gentle questions about bin Laden.
Meanwhile, UNOCAL is trying to build a pipeline.
Yeah, the oil pipeline. Gary Schroen, the CIA station chief, thought it was a fool's errand. His station couldn't even gather intel on the Taliban.
And that bizarre scene Coll describes Taliban leaders grinning for photos by Christmas trees in Houston.
It's surreal. While saying they'd use U.S. stingers on Iran next, and Mullah Omar, their leader, lost an eye, believed in dream prophecies, chosen because he didn't seem ambitious. It was all deeply deceptive.
But after the 98 embassy bombings in Africa, the hunt for bin Laden ramps up.
It does. The CIA had successes, like catching Mir Amal-Qasi, who'd killed CIA employees. Tenet boasted, no terrorist should sleep soundly.
And Zawahiri had joined bin Laden by then. They issued that joint manifesto.
Right, renewing their partnership publicly.
The CIA had actual plans to grab bin Laden, like crawling through ditches.
Detailed snatch plans for Tarnak Farm, yeah. The Saudis were getting nervous too, arresting followers. His treasurer defected. Clinton sent Tenet to Riyadh. Turkey visited Mullah Omar secretly.
Then the U.S. cruise missile strikes after the embassy bombings. Clinton declares terrorist war.
Which got the wag the dog criticism, and Pakistan blamed the U.S. for abandoning Afghanistan. And bin Laden, always savvy, stops using his satellite phone after seeing reports about it in U.S. papers.
But even then, there was debate inside the U.S. government.
Significant debate. Paul Pillar, the CIA analyst, worried focusing only on bin Laden was a mistake, a misallocation of resources. Al-Qaeda would survive him, others would step up.
And Clinton's meeting with Pakistan's PM Sharif, nukes first, economy second, then terrorism bin Laden.
Tells you the priorities at the time. And that UAE hunting camp mess. Intel thought bin Laden was there, Clark calls, camp gets torn down, CIA officers furious they couldn't just watch. Some felt sidelined but being too alarmed about the threat.
So, okay, why was the intelligence community struggling so much? even with these flashing red lights.
That's the million-dollar question Coll digs into. One big issue was the bin Laden unit itself inside the CIA.
What about it?
Heavily staffed by analysts, not spies. 70% women, 2/3 analysts from the Directorate of Intelligence. Smart, motivated people, but often junior.
And they had trouble getting the operations guys to act.
Yeah, Coll quotes a manager saying field officers didn't like taking direction from the ladies. Plus, Afghanistan under the Taliban was a denied area. Pakistan was unreliable. There was this growing fatalism by summer 2001 in the Counterterrorist Center. Like, we're going to miss stuff. We are missing stuff.
But there were still potential openings.
Yeah.
Like in Uzbekistan.
Right. Bin Laden funded radicals there. They bombed Tashkent. Covert Black proposed an alliance with Uzbekistan CIA funding, training a strike force to grab bin Laden.
And Afghans were turning against the Taliban, too. Abdul Haq's family murdered?
Yeah, the Karzai family starts seeking U.S. help, talking to Massoud. But officially, the State Department under Albright declared the U.S. would not take sides. A missed signal, maybe.
And Massoud himself was making a comeback around 2000.
Gaining ground, supplies from Iran, ammo from Russia, cash from India. He saw bin Laden as just a criminal, felt resentment against the Taliban was growing from the bottom.
Which led to that U.S.-Massoud partnership, Jawbreaker 5.
Yeah, but Covert Black was strict special English, written orders only, no improv. And the White House was still cautious. Don't upset the political balance.
Clinton was frustrated, though. Wished for black ninjas rappelling out of helicopters.
Sounds like Hollywood, but shows his frustration with the cautious military options.
And Clinton's weird visit to Pakistan in 2000.
Defying security advice, using a body double, unmarked CIA plane because of stinger threats.
And Pakistan played nice.
A cynical charm offensive, Coll calls it. They'd arrest a few minor al-Qaeda guys, not the ones important for Kashmir or Afghanistan, just to get credits with the U.S.
While Saudi money kept flowing to bin Laden and the Taliban.
Substantial amounts. Millions from the National Commercial Bank to bin Laden, $60 million from a Saudi charity to the Taliban. And the State Department actually suppressed a cable calling for a crackdown on those charities.
So, end of 2000, the Clinton cabinet meets. Still divided.
Deeply. Worries about Massoud's alleged drug ties, breaking with Pakistan, handing Bush a proxy war. They decided against any parting military shot.
And the Bush administration comes in. Terrorism wasn't high on the agenda.
Bush barely mentioned bin Laden campaigning. The new cabinet initially lacked urgency on it.
Covert Black's focus shifted to the Predator drone then.
Yeah, the armed Predator, getting that sensor-to-shooter time down from hours to seconds. They had a successful test with a Hellfire missile in Nevada.
But the Taliban were doubling down. Mullah Omar destroying the Bamiyan Buddhists.
Just ignoring history and even Islamic precedent. And the ISI chief, Mahmoud, was cold and recalcitrant with Tenet in spring 2001, blocking U.S. access.
Then the final days. Codd details his crucial intelligence failure.
A devastating, unforced error. The CIA failed early in 2000 to put 2 known al-Qaeda guys who had U.S. visas on watch lists. And a routine report comes in from Massoud's intel about 2 Arab journalists crossing his lines. Didn't raise alarms.
Until September 9th, 2001.
When those journalists assassinate Massoud,
Yeah.
his bodyguard watches him die. Amrullah Saleh calls the CIA, says Massoud is in the refrigerator, just brutal.
And Hamid Karzai's reaction, what an unlucky country.
Sums it up, doesn't it?
It really does. What a deep, disturbing journey Coll takes us on in Ghost Wars. It's so clear 9/11 wasn't just out of the blue. It was decades in the making. Choices, alliances shifting, opportunities missed.
Absolutely. Coll forces you to see how interconnected everything is. Decisions, or even not making decisions in one place, have these huge unforeseen effects years later. The threats changing, the bureaucracy, clashing cultures. It's all there.
So as you think about everything we've unpacked from Ghost Wars, maybe consider this. How did all those individual choices and personalities, Casey's zeal, the Pentagon's caution, Taraki's ruthlessness, Massoud's principles, how do they steer history? And what does that tell us about leaders and institutions today? We've seen just how hard it is to spot threats, understand them, and then act, especially with so many competing interests and blind spots. What really stands out to you?